even in theater and drama, music is used to heighten emotional emotional response and to define a mood. That's also why what kind of music do you like is a first date question. Very rarely is there someone who doesn't listen to music at all. It's, you know, in a way that what kind of paintings do you like, what kind of books do you read are a little bit less broadly applicable. Now, my family is not musical. I've never seen them play an instrument. They sing around the house and they can actually pull off an impressive karaoke Chinese opera, but I would not say I come from a musical family. I grew up listening to classical music, recordings and radio, as well as popular Chinese rock. My white friends in high school introduced me to Weird Al Yankovic and Weezer, which I loved with a passion. That was my first music listening, aside from classical music. I developed tinnitus around age 10. I made a practice of constantly having music to listen to. In college, as part of my music study requirements, I had to take these what are sometimes called drop the needle tests or repertory tests, where we would learn selections in a genre of music, string quartets, operas, contemporary music, concertos. And when I was studying for these repertoire tests, all I would listen to day in and day out were these pieces that would be on the test. And after taking one of these tests, I would revel in not listening to recorded music and just soak in the ambience, the relative silence, and the relative unintentionality of the following hours. If you're watching this short, you're already looking for something. If you still haven't figured out what that is by the end, it's time to start pretending you know what you need to do. Start listening to something.
Just before coming to Swarthmore, I was doing a lot of electronic music, particularly music concrète. The two things that tend to creep into my music most often are influences from Balinese gamelan, which I've been studying here for 4 years, and also American shape note, which is a hymn singing tradition that I've been involved in for a couple of years. And whether I like it or not, bits and pieces of those two musics tend to creep out.
A lot of stuff in the rock world, and you know, extreme metal too, and jazz, primarily modal and jazz fusion and free jazz. Though I can get into some of the older stuff too, you know, love monk, and you know, Balinese gamelan, Indian classical music, underground rap, and lots of other electronic music and ambient stuff. I mean, really anything I can get my hands on, I'll listen to, right? At least once. Well, you've got world of 20th century art music, if you will. I hate that term, but I guess classical is really not accurate either. It seems to imply a non-art music. You know, it seems to automatically elevate itself above other music, which is something that I don't really buy.
I was always interested in astronomy since a fairly little kid, and my high school had a planetarium in it where I spent a huge amount of my time, and the entrance and the exit music was things like Holst the Planets and music from Star Wars and 2001, sorry, also Sprach Zarathustra, and some amount of sort of early electronica like Jean-Michel Jarre. And so it was listening to that over and over again that really got me engrossed in listening to this music, and started like listening to more and more stuff and rapidly sort of learned all of the famous things and knew, my Beethoven and Tchaikovsky and Shostakovich, and got more and more interested in little known stuff, either forgotten composers or new music or composers from little known corners of the world, and just continue to listen to more and more stuff, because while it wasn't necessarily going to be, Beethoven level quality, it was going to be new discoveries and stuff that like very few people knew, and maybe people didn't realize how good it was. And it was cool to always find something that was completely new to me, even if it was like old music and just new to me, that was really good. So sometime in the mid-90s, I started the Unknown Composers page, which is a website for people to recommend forgotten composers to each other. And it was a public project of people who were interested in proselytizing for their favorite composers to write in examples of why these composers are good, what their music is like, what particular pieces like you should listen to. And several dozen people submitted different articles for this website.
Two composers that I'll talk about who are a lot more important than I ever expect to be, that I will reference on that. The first of them is, of course, Charles Ives, who I heard his music described as impressionist, but whereas the other impressionist composers are doing impressions of landscapes and things like that, he's doing impressions of people. And I really liked that description, and in particular, I like that description in relationship to my own experience of the music of, for instance, Osvaldo Golijov and his use of folk musics, and just trying to capture some impression of the people who make that music. I see it as part of this larger global dialogue about the shrinking of the world and getting to know parts of the world that previously seemed distant, and being able to paint these impressionist portraits of them.